Hey everybody, welcome back to Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Pal. Today I'm doing a special by request video. I have a new patron over on Patreon. If anybody doesn't know, I do have a Patreon set up, and you can support me there if you like the content that I provide here on the channel. And I have a new patron. His name is Alex, and Alex requested that I respond to this video. So thank you, Alex, for your patronage, and thank you for the suggestion, and hopefully you like this video. And if anybody else wants a video, you can join and request a topic of your own. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to be replying to a video on Dr. Avi's channel. Let me just share my screen here so you guys can see it. It is called B12, though, Wackos Debunked, narrated by Isaac Brown. So if anybody has been watching my channel for a while, you'll probably have seen some of the videos I've done. One, a debate with Dr. Avi, and then a couple of videos subsequently talking about the topic of that debate, which is organic being carnist. And you'll probably gather from those videos, especially the response videos, that I strongly disagree with Dr. Avi on many things. I think Avi makes a lot of kind of really strong, errors in judgment, let's say, and he kind of likes to pull numbers out of the air and kind of support things based on I don't know what, as opposed to facts. Now again, this is related to the organic being carnist argument. So if you are interested in those videos, please go check them out. But this video is actually not related to that. And I was obviously kind of skeptical when I first watched the video. I was wondering what this was going to be about. Okay, so once I kind of put aside my immediate reaction of I'm probably going to dislike this because it's Avi, I did actually listen to the kind of arguments made here. And while initially I didn't really take any kind of issue with the things stated, I do want to give my kind of response to the claims made here and talk a little bit about vitamin B12 in general. So if anybody hasn't seen the video, please go check it out. I'll have it linked in the description. But just as a kind of quick summary of what the video is about, many times when somebody will argue against veganism, they'll somehow say that, well, because of vitamin B12, we're clearly not meant to be vegan, biologically speaking, because how would we get enough B12? And, if you're not eating animal products, there's very little to no B12 found in other sources like water and things like that. So for, several years, I personally have also seen many people argue that, it's certainly possible that we would have gotten our B12, a long time ago, even if we weren't eating animal products, simply from things like, untreated water, groundwater, rivers, streams, ponds, etc., and also kind of soil contamination from the foods that we are eating, like fruits and veggies and things off the ground, and roots and tubers and stuff like that, as well as potentially, fecal matter that is kind of coming either from our own bodies or from, things that are on the fields, or things like that. And basically this video by Avi, which, Isaac is narrating, is basically a response to these kind of claims and saying that they're ridiculous because the amounts found in these sources is so utterly low that it would be pretty much impossible to actually meet your requirements based on these amounts. So for example, they go through the water calculation of a specific area. They have a source for the claim, but it is again just based on one study as far as I'm aware of. It's kind of a ludicrous amount of water. You actually wouldn't physically be able to drink that amount of water in a day to get your requirement, so that goes out the window. Then they go through, you'd have to eat like a quarter pound of manure to get enough B12, so that kind of goes out the window. That's not a trace amount. That's not just a little bit that is left on the food. You would have to basically be eating it intentionally. And then the same thing goes for the soil. It would be such a large amount that it's not something that you would just, have left unwashed on your produce. So where I take issue with this is that, if anybody kind of has watched the other videos, you'll know that I don't claim to make any kind of statements with regard to somebody's intentions. So with Avi and his claims about organic being carnist or not, I don't claim to understand what his motivations are. I don't want to know his motivations. I don't typically debate somebody trying to psychoanalyze them or figure out why they're doing something. I don't know why he would have to make this kind of video. It's stated that he's just doing this because he's only interested in the truth, and in fact it says so as much in this video. So he's just interested in the truth, and he doesn't like it when people say things that are inaccurate, and he's there to be the truth teller. So with that said, my thing is that it's odd that he says he's interested in the truth, but then he states these things as if it's fact, ipso facto, that's it, there is no debate. These are the sources and there's nothing else. They do talk about duckweed, but historically speaking, like if we all came out of Africa, however many years ago, then they looked at the distribution of a certain type of plant that would potentially have already had the vitamin B12, and even if we were eating it, it would only be in certain areas, and blah 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 blah. So that is like ruled out. And where I want to actually kind of, hopefully enlighten people if they are watching this and they've been totally convinced by Dr. Avi that, this is totally out of the question, and we definitely could not have possibly been herbivores in our human, evolution or development or whatever you want to call it. I just want to give a few additional points of thought that, may challenge that. So a couple of years ago, I saw this article. It was a study that came out in 2018, and I remember bringing this to one of the debates we had with Logan and Mike, the millennial prepster. And it was something that I know he grows, hydroponic plants in his garden, he says. And I remember bringing this to him because there was a breakthrough study that showed that watercress can actually take up vitamin B12, just from the water. So it was something that, I remember bringing it to him because that was one of his big arguments about keeping and raising rabbits, and he, wanted to have animal products because of vitamin B12. He didn't want to take it as an unnatural, supplement, unnatural. So basically, I think, just like this plant can also take up vitamin B12, the duckweed can take up vitamin B12. We currently just don't really know how many other plants may also take up vitamin B12. There might be way more other kinds of plants, that we would have been eating that would all potentially have contributed towards a B12 requirement that we have. The other thing is that, one of the things in Avi's video that they like to point out is that the highest level of concentration in vitamin B12 for one of the water sources was high enough that you could actually get your B12 just from it was 1.2 liters, I think, or something like that. But that was only from some type of specific algae, and it's actually kind of dangerous to drink that. It would actually be poisonous to humans, but even if you could somehow get around that, to get that B12, it would only be during some very limited parts of the year that that you would be getting that B12, and you wouldn't be able to really store that or produce it during the other times of the year. The only comment I would add here is that B12 reserves in the body take a long time to deplete. So it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility that maybe we were chronically low on B12 during many parts of the year, and then somehow built up reserves during these times when these certain algae blooms would have happened or what have you. Again, I don't think this is really the only source of it, so I wouldn't even really make this as an argument, but it's just something that's a potential counter argument to one of the things they said. And like I say, I would actually be curious as to what other plants can be shown to uptake B12, especially if there's many things out there that people have been eating in the past that we have grown away from, gone away from in our agricultural kind of development, which I think in many ways is a regression. because we have been eating fewer and fewer types of plants in the Western countries as things become more and more standardized and more mechanized, and kind of like monocrops have become predominant, and people eat far fewer things than they did in the past. There's a lot more things that people used to scavenge and find and forage, even just going through the woods. Who knows how many other kind of wild grown edibles may also contain B12. I don't know, and I'm not making a claim. I'm just simply putting this out there as one other source. Watercress has been eaten for a very, very long time. If you actually just do a little bit of reading, I know people are going to be like, oh, it's Wikipedia. Well, just look up some other sources. I just wanted to show you this as just a quick aside, that watercress is one of the oldest known leaf vegetables consumed by humans. So basically, who knows if, other plants that are similar to it might also take up B12. We don't know. I think more research obviously needs to be done, and it could be an interesting idea that maybe we were getting B12 from one of these plants or something similar. The other thing is that I just want to kind of give you guys is that it's not just some fringe, vegans per se, or vegan activists per se, or any kind of wackos, as Avi and Isaac paint it in that video, that make these claims that humans are herbivorous by nature. There's actually been many articles, many scientific, peer-reviewed journal entries, articles that have been written in the past making this claim by people who are far more, likely to be knowledgeable in this field than Avi or Isaac. So, again, I'm not appealing to authority. I'm not even telling you that this is the case. I'm just saying that for them to dismiss this out of hand because of a small number of calculations from a small number of data points that they've looked at, I think that is really showing hubris and kind of, ego versus just saying, hey, this is probably unlikely. We need to look at more information, whatever. So this is just one, interesting article. You guys can check it out. It just talks about kind of, the beginnings of, veganism and vegans and vegan societies, and what kind of, in the past, historically speaking, vegan people may have lived. And they basically, just talk about, for example, the Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains have all long promoted plant-based diets for ethical reasons. An early Jain called Parsva from 877 BCE taught followers about ahimsa, cornerstone beliefs, nonviolence, living forms, etc., etc. So, but again, this isn't really talking about evolution. This isn't going back far enough, but it is just giving you several kind of societies and, populations that would have been vegan or largely vegan or vegetarian, at least, to the point that they ate very little animal products or virtually no animal products. And, basically it goes back, hundreds, possibly thousands of years in some of these cases, and just an interesting thing to think about. And then basically the next thing I just want to give you guys to consider is this article. This is just really making reference to several different, kind of ideas, but basically making the case that that we are herbivorous by nature. They, quote a source here, Catherine Milton from the University of California, Berkeley's Department of Environmental Science, Policy and Management. And she says, there seems general agreement that the ancestral line leading to apes and humans was markedly herbivorous, and that for most of our approximately 150,000 year existence, our diet appears to have been based on plants. Milton also pointed out the lack of evidence supporting any notable diet-related changes in human nutrient requirements, metabolism, or digestive physiology relative to those of great apes. So basically meaning we've probably had the same digestion and we haven't really changed much in the past 150,000 years, and that we appear to be, largely having lived off of plants, so definitely plant-based. They also talk about, William Roberts' claims where he wrote to the he was the former editor-in-chief of the American Journal of Cardiology, and he argued in a letter in that publication that we are herbivorous. He talks about how, true omnivores and carnivores don't get heart disease, don't get atherosclerosis, but humans do. They talk about the studies that were done showing that when you take a dog, no matter how much saturated fat cholesterol you feed it, there is no atherosclerosis developed. But if you take a rabbit and you feed them even small amounts of saturated fat and cholesterol, they can develop heart disease very quickly. Atherosclerosis builds very quickly. And they talk about that, and basically, again, they say that the approximately 20 million year evolutionary lineage of great apes is markedly herbivorous. Our digestive anatomy and physiology, nutrient requirements, and metabolism do not appear to differ notably from other great apes or herbivores generally. And for most of the approximately 150,000 year history of our species, we appear to have eaten mostly plants. There are many, many people who claim that basically our eating of animal products stems from changes in the environment, moving further north, the Ice Age, et cetera, where we were basically forced to start eating other things besides plants. Now, with all of this said, I want to get back to the idea of kind of the response to this video. Let me just stop sharing my screen here. Basically, what is the point of having this argument and having Avi make this video basically saying that anyone who believes that humans are herbivorous, biologically speaking, or that we have been in the past, or that that's how we started off, whether or not that has any kind of relevance, and if anybody makes these claims, then they're wackos. I think again, I don't want to get into what his motivations for doing this are. I have theories, but that's not really important. I personally think that there are some people that you would need to get into these kind of arguments, get into this level of getting down into the weeds, into the duckweeds, to basically convince them that veganism is a logical choice and it's good for you and blah blah blah, and it's okay, because of even evolutionary development, whatever. It doesn't go against that, and you can still be vegan. For many people, they would need this kind of argumentation, and I think for many people it would be very difficult to convince them otherwise. I personally speak from experience that I used to be very, very anti-vegan, and one of my main kind of concerns was that you couldn't get B12 from a natural source. I did have an issue with that. I took that to mean that we weren't meant to be vegan, just because that wasn't there. Now, since then, I think I would have pretty good arguments to make against that kind of line of reasoning, even if I wasn't able to make any kind of evolutionary, biological, whatever, physiological, archaeological kind of arguments against that. I would simply go with an argument if I came across this and the person wasn't having any of this stuff, or somebody like Avi has convinced them that it's absolutely out of the question that we would have been able to be herbivorous in the past. I would simply put it like this. In the future, many, many years from now, the sun will explode and swallow the earth, and we will basically all be gone if we don't find a way to basically escape the earth and colonize and move to other planets and travel to other parts of the solar system. Now, with that said, is that completely unnatural? Yes. Show me any other life forms or organisms from this planet that we know of that have gone on to space travel and in fact have colonized other areas. But if we are to survive, that is something that we will need to do at some point. Now, with all of that said, are you going to be the kind of person that says, well, even if I had the chance to be able to go and escape the inevitable fate of the Earth being swallowed by the sun, I'm not going to do that because it's not natural? Would you do that? And if the answer is no, you would gladly get on a spaceship and go if you knew that in 5 years' time the Earth is going to destroy going to be destroyed or what have you, then you would not accept that as a logical argument against doing something just because it's unnatural. So there's many other things you can do, and I'm sure Isaac and Avi would say the same. I would imagine that is kind of what they're saying. The point of their video is that you can use other arguments that would convince people to be vegan. Now, what do I still think about this this video? I do think it is pretty polarizing. I think they both kind of seem to have a habit of making videos that that seem to really agitate a lot of commotion within the vegan community and get people kind of like really adamantly fighting each other and causing drama and stirring up a lot of things. And again, I don't know if it's intentional or not, or what their intentions are, but that is I would say a fact that this is kind of meant to be provocatory, and it certainly has been, as far as I can see from comments on this video as well as other videos talking about this. And I don't think that's really helpful. I don't think it's really good. I don't think the spirit of the video is kind of done in the right way, where they just say, look, you shouldn't argue and state this as a fact that this is how it was, or this is how you would have been able to get B12. I think stating that it's possible that you may have gotten B12 naturally, in the past from XYZ, I think that is fine. Stating, something may be possible, whereas they are basically definitively saying that it's impossible. And I don't think they've provided even nearly enough evidence to actually come out and state that as a fact. So that's my only real issue with the video. I don't think it's helpful. I don't think it's actually good for the vegan movement because they're saying that they're interested in the truth. They're interested in getting people to use better arguments. I'm all for people using better arguments, but I am not for people stating as fact something that hasn't been demonstrated to be fact at all. And I just think again, there could be other sources. There also, we don't know, just because what kind of water was surveyed, when these studies were done, that was the same water that would have been around 150,000 years ago, before the advent of, antibiotics and chemicals and pesticides and herbicides and who knows whatever else that we're putting into our groundwater, including, various medications and what have you. So again, just it's impossible to know what was the case 150,000 years ago. For them to state unequivocally that this is impossible, I think is really kind of arrogant and just not very, it's just not very smart. And honestly, I think it is divisive and not helpful to the vegan movement. I think for many people that are like myself included, when I was very anti-vegan, I think having the possibility, at least in the realm of possibility, that this is something that may have happened, that can actually be quite helpful to convince people, or at least to not shut their mind off to veganism and actually listen to your other arguments, as opposed to just being like, whatever, I'm done, it's impossible, it's not natural. As much as we kind of want to make fun of people for going to those kind of counter arguments against veganism, where they say, well, if it's not natural and whatever, in some ways, it kind of makes sense, because people kind of, I think, intuitively know that, nature does seem to have things pretty well figured out. Like if something doesn't work evolutionarily speaking, things tend to die off. If you are doing something that isn't good for the survival of your species, like those traits, those characteristics, those actions tend to, weed themselves out. And, if people want to kind of say that something is, inherently bad because it's unnatural, to some extent, I can certainly, understand it. At least I can empathize with that feeling. And in many ways, I kind of tend to agree with it, to certain extents and in certain cases. Now, again, I say the ultimate test for me is like, would you want to stay on the planet because that's what's natural, or would you want to escape when it's going to, blow up in X amount of years? I would just think, that is kind of something that could help as well. But so yeah, let's just wrap up. My, I guess, concise summary is that I don't think Avi's video is very helpful. I don't think it's very well researched. I think there's many other possibilities that they haven't really touched on that certainly could explain how we may have been herbivorous. They don't really talk about the various experts in the field that have made these claims as well, looking at all sorts of things from fossilized poop and then analyzing what those remains contained. Looking at various sites in various places and in various populations around the world that are still largely plant-based, to the point that they have the vast majority of their calories coming in from plant sources. And again, just like how you can say, okay, well, are they getting enough B12 from those, trace tiny amounts of animal products, or are they getting enough B12 from other sources? How are those populations getting it? And if the case is that, oh, if your claim is that, somebody like the Okinawans or the people on the Isle of Crete, back in the 30s or 40s, they had 93% of their calories from plant sources. The people in Okinawa pre, World War II, they had, I think it's something like 95 or however many, some higher percentage of their calories coming from plant sources. If those remaining, 7, 8, 5, however many percent are coming from animal sources, if that is enough to cover B12, then why do we have so much B12, deficiency in the world today? In many other places where people are eating way more than that as a percentage of their calories from animal products. So there could be other things going on that account for this. We just simply don't know, like what other changes are happening. Maybe our gut flora has changed, even though like the physiology per se hasn't changed in the human body. Maybe the gut flora has, and maybe that's accounting for some differences. We just simply don't know, and I think it's incredibly arrogant to just state this as fact that we definitely aren't herbivorous, or that these claims that we may be herbivorous and that it may be possible to have a fully vegan diet going back 150,000 years ago. I just think that's not really proven by this video. So I would say this video is debunked, at least by my logic. If you disagree, please feel free to leave it in the comments. I'm sure many people will. Avi and Isaac seem to have many fans who are very vocal about not watching my videos, but leaving many comments, basically telling me to jump on Discord and debate them. As I've said many times before, I'm happy to debate anybody here on YouTube. This is my platform. I don't go on Discord. I've never used it. I'm not going to. If you want to debate me, I'm happy to debate in the comments. I'm happy to debate live on a live stream. Join me. Let me know what you want to hear. Join me on Patreon. Thanks, Alex, for this request. Hope you like it. And I hope to see you in another video soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.